December 18th, 2014. This is the Hermetic Hour. I'm your host, Poke Runyon, and tonight we present a discussion on the mission statement of the Church of the Hermetic Sciences and the O.T.A. Astartes. Now, this is one of the topics that was discussed at our last Board of Directors meeting as especially important with our membership increasing and new lodges beginning to open up around the country. Now, in the magical community, we are known as the folks that know how to make ritual magic work. But that in itself is not enough of a reason for people to join us unless they simply want to learn our techniques and methods to use for their own purposes. Now, frankly, that is not what we are here for, and we are not teaching magic so that it can be misused. We consider magic to be a system of mental and spiritual development that leads to what we refer to as enlightenment, which we define as a close personal relationship with God. And we follow a pattern of Hermetic mytho-philosophy that was born in Alexandria in the 1st century and perfected by the Renaissance Neoplatonic Hermetic Magi in the 14th, 15th, and 16th century Europe, culminating in the Rosicrucian tradition. We combine paganism, Kabbalah, astrology, and alchemy in line with Jungian psychology in a neo-romantic quest for the Holy Grail based on a lineage of eternal goddesses and dying gods from the time of Melchizedek to the beginnings of Christianity. If you've ever wondered just why we do what we do and where we are going with it, stay tuned and we will try to enlighten you. Now, this is a tall order, but it's something that we really have been overdue in actually codifying and getting out there. And so it was this and some other protocols were on the agenda the last Board of Directors meeting that we had. And so I'm going to address this mission statement tonight, and then we'll be able to publish it. In fact, we have to reprint the Book of Solomon's Magic for about the 16th or 17th time. And I have to do that pretty shortly because we're almost sold out. We're almost out of stock on that. And, of course, when I'm saying that, the book scalpers will hear that, and maybe they'll go out and put $1,000 price tags on their used copies of it. Or No, we're going to reprint it, so don't. I don't want to encourage them to do that. But the last time we got close to reprinting the cipher book, we ended up with people. Some of the book scalpers were asking almost $1,000 a copy for it. Now, one of the things that I want to mention here with this mission statement, that on the back, and those of you who are familiar with our seventh rays, the new ones and the old ones, on the back of the seventh ray, there is a very nice design of the two pillars of the temple with the Uraeus on top of it. And in the box, in the smoke rising from the brazier, which is a nice way to do it, we have something that's called "What is the O.T.A.?" And this is actually pretty close to, in its own way, it's pretty close to a mission statement. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to read this whole thing to you, and then we're going to use it as an outline to create, to make it into a mission statement, because it pretty much is. So I'm looking at the back of the green ray right now. That's the seventh ray, book 3. And it says, the header is, "What is the O.T.A.? The Ordo Templi Astartes is a Hermetic society open to men and women on an equal basis. We practice ceremonial magic in the Western occult tradition. Our initiations are based on the 18th century Masonic rite of O.T.A. We venerate the gods and goddesses of ancient Canaan after the example of our biblical avatars, Melchizedek and Solomon. The order is sponsored by the Church of the Hermetic Sciences, a California religious institution incorporated in 1971. The Ordo Templi Astartes is secret and initiatory. Candidates must present themselves in person to the hermitage and temple where they wish to affiliate and be accepted by the active membership. The order offers a romantic, mystical return to the ancient ideals of personal divinity in harmony with an ordered cosmos. We follow Jungian psychological conceptions and take a subjective view of magical phenomena. We consider Western magic as our culture's unique form of shamanism. Ceremonial magic is more of an art form than a science. It combines the talents of the poet, the dramatist, and the artist with the wisdom of the great philosophers, resulting in the spiritual development of our most potent intangible resource, the creative imagination. Now, like I said, this is pretty close to a mission statement, and we've been using it. We've been using this for the last 35 years, this statement, with some modifications, of course, and updates. Now, go through it and use it as an outline to develop a full-fledged mission statement. Now, start over again. The Ordo Templi Astartes, that's the O.T.A., is a hermetic society open to men and women on an equal basis. We practice ceremonial magic in the Western occult tradition. Now, I think that it's necessary for me to backtrack a little bit here and say how we got started practicing ceremonial magic in the Western esoteric tradition. As those of you who have seen our videos and read the Book of Solomon's Magic, you know that I, back in 1968, 69, I developed a very, very serious illness, and which was misdiagnosed as an ulcer. And at that time, ulcers were thought to be psychosomatic. I decided that I would cure myself by learning self-hypnosis and perfecting that, and use that discipline to cure myself of the ulcer. So I got the books on self-hypnosis, and I trained myself to do it. And so I got deeper and deeper and deeper into this, but it was very, very hard to get rid of this pain, because the actual truth is I had an atrophied gallbladder, and it turned into solid rock, and it was inflamed, and pain was really little more than self-hypnosis could handle. But as a result of the trying of the attempt of seeing if I could overcome this pain and all, I managed to get very, very, very deep into self-hypnosis. And that led me into a study of mysticism. And because the Tibetans were considered to be the most effective mental magicians at that time, I got all of the Evans Wentz summed up books, and I started studying the Tibetan tantric yoga from these books, and combining some of those techniques with as much as I could with my self-hypnosis. And the result then that led me to Western ceremonial magic, and I started investigating that. And I read Arthur Waite's Book of Magic and Pacts, and a very excellent survey of the whole thing by Richard Cavendish called The Black Arts. And so I, in the process of this, I ran across a reference to the use of the magic mirror in Omar Garrison's book, the Tantra, the Yoga of Sex, and so I discovered from experimentation that you could summon not just a previous incarnation or ancestors, as was being done, well, according to Garrison and others, but you could also, using this dark mirror and your own reflection, you could summon the vision of a spirit. And this, of course, worked very well along with my study of Indian psychology. I realized that, and the Kabbalah, and at this time I was reading Saragossa manuscript and George MacDonald's Fantasticks, in which they have a lot of magic stories about the use of magic mirrors, and realizing that these spirits really are, they all dwell in as archetypes in your subconscious anyway. And so I developed this method of using from the Goetia of the Lemegeton, of bringing forth these ancient goetic spirits. And the two of them that I was most fascinated with, especially after reading Cavendish's book, was Baal and Astaroth, who actually were, according to Cavendish, and this has been confirmed by other anthropologists and scholars, that they actually were the old Canaanite gods Baal and Astarte, the goddess Astarte, and they had been demonized by the rabbis and also by the priests and by Milton and the rest of the Christian and Jewish clergy and writers. So they had demonized these two. So if I could bring Baal and Astarte to visible appearance and talk with them, then I would be resurrecting these ancient Canaanite god and goddess form. So I did this, and it worked. And this, of course, was really quite a tremendous experience for me. This found out that this would really work, and I got in communication with these ancient forms and ancient god and goddess form, and they what they did was they inspired me to recreate a version of their ancient religion, a modernized version of it. Now, and I got to say, at the same time I was doing this, I was eventually my ulcer got my so-called ulcer, the gallbladder, got properly diagnosed, and I had surgery and got it out, and I recovered. And I was looking around at this point. I realized that I was going to be, I could still, after I recovered, I really could still do this. And I could, and not only that, I could teach other people to do it. So I wanted to found a magical lodge to teach this work and to develop it. And at the time, I was looking around for, well, quite frankly, I was looking around for a master. I knew that I'm trying to find a Western master that I could study with, and of course I did. I eventually met Francis Rigardi and old Louis Culling. So, but before that I got hooked up with them. I met Frederick Adams, and Frederick Adams was exactly what I was looking for, a Western master. And so I studied with Fred, and of course Fred was the founder of Feraferia, and that's a Robert Graves-based cult that nature and ancient the reconstruction in the way Fred did it of the Eleusinian mysteries. Now, so I studied with Fred, and I joined Feraferia, and I learned a lot from Fred. I learned, one of the main things I learned from Fred, that so many of these modern occultists just don't understand and don't know. What I learned from Fred was that all of Western magic and all of the reality of all of this is in the Renaissance Neoplatonists and the old Greek philosophers and Pythagoras and Plato and all the way down through Plotinus and all the way to the Gnostics of Alexandria, which we're going to talk about in a minute. And I learned to appreciate all of this from Fred. And this was really worth its weight in gold, because this is where so many of these modern occultists, the furthest back they read is Eliphas Levi. They don't go much further back than that, and they spend all their time thinking they can learn everything from reading Crowley and reading Paul Case. Well, they can't, because Paul Case was way off the mark in many things, and Crowley, well, sure, I read Crowley, and for a while I thought I was probably a Thelemite for a while, but I soon got out of that. But Fred Adams was really my master, and he was the one who had these Eleusinian seasonal ceremonies, and based on the ancient Greek legend of Persephone and Kore, and so by this time we had started the O.T.A., the Order of the Temple of Astarte, and this was based upon our relationship with Astarte that we were bringing forth using the Goetia, and so at this point, under Fred's influence, I discovered the ancient Canaanite legends that had been unearthed actually back in the 1930s, and so we were able to actually look at what Baal and Astarte's religion really was. We could finally, after all these hundreds of years, realize it. And I combined that with other things that I learned from Fred about classical paganism, and so consequently, what we realized, what I realized we had was a version of classical mythology that underlaid the biblical tradition, and was connected all the way up through Solomon. And of course, Solomon was supposed to be quite a magician, as I'm sure you all know, and he was the one that put the 72 spirits of the Goetia into the brass vessel, and so I realized that Solomon, reading the Bible, studying about the ancient Canaanite religion, and really doing the research, that Solomon actually was a devotee of Astarte, and so what we realized here was that underlying the Bible and the Kabbalah and this biblical tradition was really all the way up through Solomon was the classical paganism of the Phoenicians, which was very close to, in many ways, to the mythology of the Babylonians, and ancient Sumer with Ishtar and that pantheon, and also cognate with ancient Egypt with Isis and Osiris, and with ancient Greece and Hercules and Europa and a number of Greek and Aphrodite, especially Aphrodite, is Astarte and actually did come from ancient Canaan, and Hercules, of course, was originally Melkart of the Phoenicians. So there's quite a connection. In fact, we might say that the ancient Phoenician Canaanite religion of Baal and Astarte and Father El and Mother Asherat above them was really the oldest religion behind all of this. And so what that led to was us creating, especially under the influence of Fred's beautiful ceremonies in Periferia, and my wife at the time, Soror Artemis, she told me, Pope, we have to have seasonal ceremonies in the O.T.A. We just have to. We have to have, and so I started, really researching them, and I began to work them up. And the important thing here at this point, I think Fred suggested to me that I read a book called From Ritual to Romance by Jessie Weston, a British lady anthropologist. Back in 1920, she published this book called From Ritual to Romance. And what she had discovered, and her thesis in this book, was that the whole legend of the Holy Grail started in ancient Canaan in a spring way up in the mountains of Lebanon called Afaka, where the water ran out of this grotto and then fell down into a gorge. And in the springtime, when the water level rose, it reached a hematite layer in the side of the gorge, and the river ran red all the way out to the sea. And this was said to replicate the death of the dying god. And in this case, originally this was Baal being killed by Mot, but eventually it became translated as they were Hellenized. It got into Adonis, and he was supposedly killed by a wild boar, and Astarte, grieved for him, and so what she had discovered was that this legend of the dying god and the river running red went all the way back to originally to Canaanite times. Now, she based this on a document called the Nicene document, which was a Gnostic document that a church father, Hippolytus, had reproduced, and she based it on this. And what the general idea was that and this was really a quite a revelation to me as I studied this, that the Nicene document said that all these dying gods, from Osiris and Baal and all of these dying gods, culminated eventually in Jesus of Nazareth. He was the last of the pagan dying gods. And, of course, his consort, who mourned for him, was, as we know, Mary Magdalene. And also she was obviously his priestess. Well, this was carried through in an Essayine document, and it's all in there. And Jesse Weston, he used this as her thesis for this is the origin of the Holy Grail. Well, so this is where this was the message of our seasonals, and we then developed all 4 solstice and equinox ceremonies, which we've been doing for the past more than 40 years now. And we're about to do balsam in a couple of days now. So this following all the way through from Baal and Astarte all the way through to Jesus of Nazareth. This completes the Western tradition, and it ties in the ancient pagan archetypes and the Phoenician pantheon, the old pantheon of the gods, and it justifies the Renaissance fascination that the Renaissance Magi had with classical mythology, and they were trying, even though they were Christians. They were all Christians and eventually Rosicrucians, but they were trying to have a revival of classical mythology. Of course, they were looking at the Greek, primarily the Greek end of it, and the Greco, to some degree, Greco-Egyptian. But that, of course, is translatable into, as I say, into the Canaanite. Now, one of the reasons why we like to stay with the Canaanite rather than to try to translate this into Greek is because this gives us a direct connection with Solomon. And Solomon is the great avatar of ceremonial magic, as I'm sure you know. And so consequently, we wanted to stay with the Canaanite classical pagan tradition. We want to stay with them and use those archetypes and as our ancient avatars, but under the you should understand this. All of these ancient archetypes are literally opened up and controlled by the archangels and by God. Now, when it comes to God, we got away from using Jehovah or YHVH. We got away from that because the over-god of the ancient Canaanites was El, and he was called El the Compassionate. And we believe, and we have also left backup to back this up, that Jesus of Nazareth was really trying to, that his New Testament, his New Covenant, was trying to restore El rather than Yod-Heh-Wah-Heh as the God of the New Testament, because El was always called El the Compassionate, and he was the father of all the gods and the father of men, and his consort, Lady Asherat of the Sea, was the two of them presided over the Holy Family, very much like Olympus, very much like Mount Olympus, and by the way, I want to mention that the Bible itself can be divided into books that favor Yahweh and books that favor El. And you can divide the whole Old Testament up into these different books. And so our idea was, and we have, we have scholars that will agree with us, that Jesus was really a devotee of El. Now, one of the reasons, Paul said on a couple of occasions that Jesus was a priest after the order of Melchizedek. Well, Melchizedek was certainly a priest of El, not Jehovah. So this is one of our, when we're talking about a mission statement here, this is one of our aspects of our mission statement, is to promote the idea of El as the compassionate Father God, and to understand that this is our interpretation of the new covenant, and also to realize that Mary Magdalene was quite probably Jesus' wife. We follow that idea, and also his high priestess, and that, by the way, in the Nicene document, the final culmination of that is a Phoenician Christian Gnostic philosopher and priest, Marcus the Valentinian. And Marcus the Valentinian and his priestess gave communion together and replicated the Aphaca Holy Grail phenomenon with their chalice that where they turned water into wine. And so that we consider to be the foundation of the legend of the Holy Grail, because Marcus was first century, by the way. Marcus's version of this communion and his version of Christianity went all the way to southern France, up into the Rhone Valley above Languedoc, and that's where the Holy Grail tradition got into southern France and eventually over to Glastonbury. And that follows right along with, it follows along with the if you want to be quite popular about it, it follows along with Holy Blood, Holy Grail, and it also follows along with the Da Vinci Code. And it is especially confirmed by this latest book that's come out called The Lost Gospel. And that confirms this whole idea. Now, so I want to point out that we are not necessarily pagan, and we're not necessarily pagan. We are actually just as, I would say, we're just as Christian as we are pagan, or Rosicrucian, because this is certainly has a relationship to Rosicrucianism. In fact, I suspect that after reading the Lost Gospel, I suspect that the Rosicrucians were aware of this Joseph and Asenath story that is really an allegory of Jesus and Mary Magdalene. I suspect they knew about this because Mary Magdalene, or Mary the Magdalene, means Mary the Lady of the Tower, and if you and the whole central theme. And Marcus, by the way, was a Valentinian, and this Lost Gospel is a Valentinian document. And the Valentinians, they thought, and they believed, as we believe, that the holy marriage, in this case of Jesus and Mary the Magdalene, the holy marriage, or hieros gamos, is the real sacrament, is the real communion, and is the really sacred passion. This is the passion of Jesus and Mary, not crucifixion, as the Catholic Church would have you believe. That the crucifixion, if that ever occurred, or if it did, that was sad and all, but that was not the passion. The passion was the holy marriage of the two, and that, of course, is also the hieros gamos, which we celebrate the sacred marriage at vernal equinox with Baal and Astarte, and that's part of our alchemical of our first four operations. Now, this so this is literally what we are doing here is we're putting the whole classical underlying truth behind the Bible, the truth behind the Old Testament and the New Testament, and we're bringing this thing all through, and we're doing it in terms of the Western esoteric tradition. Because all of this that I'm talking about, all of these things they're hinted at, and they are symbolized in aspects of the Western esoteric tradition, and both in Jewish practice and in Christian practice. Now, in relationship to that, let's consider that the Crater-Rapola, and I want to talk about that a little bit because the 18th century Masonic rite of Crater-Rapola. The only reason why I called it Masonic is because it was written by Masons, and what they did, von Koppen primarily, what they did was they tried to collect thing they could get from classical sources about the Alexandria, the first century Alexandrian mystery initiations, and collect everything they could find and put together a series of 7 degrees that they called the initiations of the Egyptian priests. And this was, when I say, we say Egyptian, but actually they weren't. They were Greco-Egyptian, because at that time, first century Alexandria, this was very, very much a Greekified, Hellenistic approach to. They still had the legend of Isis and Osiris, but they'd lost just about everything else out of Egyptian mythology, and the legend, but the legend of Isis and Osiris is very, very much like this. This precedes Jesus and Mary Magdalene, and this is right in the line of it. But what I want to point out with Crater-Rapola is that the 7th degree of Crater-Rapola, in the 7th degree, the Holy Sacrament, the sacramental, not wine, not blood, but honey, a honeycomb that Jesus brings down in his angelic form to Mary's tower. She lives in the tower, and he brings this down to her bridal chamber in the tower, and they share this honeycomb, and that is the sacred drink that we have been using for the past 37 years. It's called Oimelis in the Crater-Rapola, and it's a honey. It's made with honey, and this comes. So and now not only that, that's one makes me think that von Koppen and his team of esoteric Masons who put the Crater-Rapola together, that they had access to the Joseph and Asenath version of Jesus and Mary Magdalene, because the honeycomb is featured as the sacrament for the Holy Marriage. It's a seminal sacrament rather than a blood sacrament, of course. And now, so that becomes the Oimelis in the 7th degree of Crater-Rapola, which we have been using ever since we use it every solstice. Every solstice, Paul goes around the circle with this goblet of honey, which we mix. We mix 1 part honey with 1 part 151 rum, and mix that up, and that's our version of Oimelis for the circle dance that Baal does on the solstices. And now the one other thing that Prater Solomon pointed out to me as we were reading the Lost Gospel, the Joseph and Asenath story, is that the 7th degree in the 7th degree of Krata-Rapua. The 7th degree candidate is, when he reaches the 7th degree, he is called the prophet, and he is called the revealer of the mysteries. Now, this, of course, is based upon Joseph, Dreamcoat Joseph, which the story of Jesus and Mary Magdalene is extrapolated from the original Joseph of the Old Testament, who became the Grand Vizier of Pharaoh, as you recall. But Pharaoh gave Joseph, the original Joseph in the Old Testament, he gave him a title. And he gave him a title, a 2-word title. And I'm not going to try to pronounce it because I'll probably mispronounce it. But it's in the Bible, it's in Genesis, and that is the title that the writers of Krata-Rapua gave to the 7th degree prophet when he reached that's the title, exactly the same title that Pharaoh gave to Joseph. So I am convinced that the Joseph and Asenath story was known to the writers of Krata-Rapua, and I'm also convinced that it was known to Valentine Andre. If he in fact wrote The Chemical Wedding of Christian Rosencreutz, I'm convinced that he also had access to this document, because there's too much tower symbolism, and Mary Magdalene is, as has been pointed out in the Da Vinci Code and everything else, Mary Magdalene is the Holy Grail. Her womb is, and of course her children, and all of that is also covered in the Lost Gospel. So this we call Christophorus in the Krata-Rapua is our Rosicrucian degree, and we call on the inner order of the Krata-Rapua, and our Krata-Rapua, we call our version of it Krata-Rapua Reformado. In other words, the Krata-Rapua Reformed, because we made a lot of changes in Krata-Rapua to move different elements around to different degrees. They have a lot of different tests and elements and ordeals in the wrong place as far as the initiatory scheme is concerned. And so we've rearranged some of these things. So we added things to it, like we've added the legend of Solomon and Sheba to the alchemical degree, to alchemia, and that temple legend. And we've modified the Krata-Rapua to include some of these aspects that I've been discussing. And we call our inner order from Christophorus, 4th degree on up, the ORC, the Ordo Rosicrucis, and we use Cagliostro's Old Rose Cross with the Enneosphere that you find in Paul Christian's History and Practice of Magic, which is where we get the French version of the Krata-Rapua, which we've also included. Now, let's continue on. So we've also too. I'd like to mention that we say our biblical avatars Melchizedek and Solomon. Before that, we should put Enoch, because Enoch was definitely Canaanite, and the so-called book Ethiopian Enoch, that so-called book, that's a Canaanite book. That's one of the L books, and by the way, predicts Jesus very, very, very clearly, and all of those fallen angels came down onto Mount Hermon, which is in Lebanon, and so it is definitely Enoch should be considered one of an antediluvian avatar, and that's something we share with Masonry, by the way. Now, I said the Ordo Templi Astartes is secret and initiatory. Candidates must present themselves in person to the hermitage and temple where they wish to affiliate and be accepted by the active membership. Now that's true for active members, but we have an associate member program which we've had in the works for years and finally manifested, and due to the excellent work of Sorors Andrea. And so we have this associate member program which is online, so you can join us online, and we have a little mystery school and lessons and a wonderful pathworking DVD that you can get once you get into it. And now, so then once you're an associate member, it's fairly easy if you know to find an active lodge nearby. We have lodges in Texas. We have lodges in Georgia, and we're developing lodges in Pennsylvania, and we're starting them up. You know, we're growing very fast. So the way to get in is to join the associate member program, and then try to find the nearest lodge to you, and you know. And you might even want to start a study group and start one yourself and get an encampment authorization and get going. Now, you know, one of the fascinating things about the O.T.A., of course, is our equipment. We use the magic mirrors and you know, the triangle and the circle and all of the paraphernalia of medieval ceremonial and Renaissance ceremonial magic. We use it and it works. And we conjure divisible appearance. We channel angels and spirits and ancient god forms and we do celestial magic and we have a wonderful celestial magic system in the inner order. Which of course is based on mystical astrology. Now, to go a little further with this statement here, the order offers a romantic, mystical return to the ancient ideals of personal divinity and harmony with an ordered cosmos. All right. Now, we are very, very romantic, and you just about have to be a romantic to be attracted to our particular organization and style and whatever. Now, what is a romantic? Well, a romantic is a person who believes that he or she has a special, that their life is very special, and they have a calling. They have a special connection with God, or they will develop one, or they want to develop one, and they believe in destiny, and they believe in personal. They believe in personal achievement in a spiritual and in an artistic sense. Most great artists, musicians, and you know, composers and poets and many writers are romantics. Romantics, as I said, the mystical return to the ancient ideals of personal divinity in harmony with an ordered cosmos. In other words, the Hermetic proposition itself is very romantic. In the Hermetic tradition, we believe, we accept astrology. We use astrology in our magic, and we believe that the human body is a microcosm of the greater macrocosm of the universe. In other words, you have the whole solar system inside yourself. The tree of life, the Kabbalistic tree of life, is very astrological and very, very planetary, and the spheres of the tree of life are equated with the planets, and we put all those spheres inside ourselves, and we have the tree of life within us, and we use them the same way that the Easterners use the chakra system. We have our own form of yoga, which uses the tree of life, and we're in which all of the spheres are the planets within. It is based very, very soundly on the Western esoteric tradition and the Rosicrucian tradition. Now, I said we follow a Jungian psychological conceptions. Now, Carl Jung, as far as we are concerned, he is psychology of the collective unconscious, and his idea of archetypes and the shadow and all these various mythological, alchemical, and even astrological aspects of Jungian psychology. We are very, very, very firmly along that line. And by the way, Jungian psychological philosophy is right in keeping with Hermes Trismegistus. You could just about take the writings of Hermes and read them, and read the writings of Carl Jung, and just see how they all go together. And so we take a subjective view of magical phenomenon. Okay, now it's I don't want to call the Kabbalion a hermetic work, but I guess it is in a way. It's a lot of new thought in it. More so, there's more new thought philosophy than hermetic philosophy. But the Kabbalion makes one statement over and over again: everything is mental, and they're right, because all the angels, the spirits, everything is accessible to and functions through efforts of and perception of the human mind. So we take a subjective view of magical phenomenon. When you conjure a spirit to visible appearance, you're using your own reflection, and that's, you put the sigil on there. Of course, that breaks up the facial reflection, makes it unique. But yeah, but it resides, and you're seeing it through the filter of your mind. Now, this actually is really not. There are a lot of people out there in practicing ceremonial magic and writing books about ceremonial magic who believe that these spirits are completely outside of the mind. That the mind is not necessary. That being in a magical trance state is not necessary to actually access them. This is not true. You have to be, in order to communicate with these spirits, in order to manifest them, you need to be in the magical trance state, and that is a form of hypnosis, and also it's a form of yoga, and so the magical trance state is definitely necessary, and these spirits are subjective, and yet they're very, very powerful, and they can even be dangerous, but they are subjective. And I said, we consider Western magic as our culture's unique form of shamanism. Well, the shamans would certainly agree with us, third world shamans, or so-called primitive shamans. And they, by the way, these people have no problem with subjective manifestation. They have no problem with it at all. It's just some of these very credulous individuals, and one of them happens to be a very, at least within the magical community, a very famous writer of magic books, and he believes that these spirits are totally outside of the mind, and they come floating around in the air when you call them and whatever. And this is just not the way it is. And now, ceremonial magic is more of an art form than a science. It combines the talents of the poet, the dramatist, and the artist with the wisdom of the great philosophers, resulting in the spiritual development of our most potent and tangible resource, the creative imagination. Now, one of the things that people are discovering that people just join the associate member program. They're starting to discover with us that talents that they never knew they had. They build their own equipment, and then, oh my gosh, I didn't know I could build things. I didn't know I could make models. I didn't know I could build any of this material. I didn't know that I had artistic talent. Well, you're going to exercise your artistic talent when you're a magician, because you build your own equipment, and you will use art and stagecraft and costuming. And I said it combines the talents of the poet, the dramatist, and the artist. Okay, well, magic is conjurations or Elizabethan type conjurations that we learn and use, and the poetry of our seasonal ceremonies, and of course your drama. Obviously, you're putting on sacred dramas, and so you're exercising that ability, and the artist, as I've discussed, in the various arts and crafts. And the wisdom of the great philosophers, yes, you will be reading as you study magic and study it correctly. You'll be reading ancient Greek philosophers. You'll be reading things like Plato's Timaeus, and you will really be dipping into the well of ancient wisdom. And expanding your consciousness as a result. Now, you're developing your most creative resource, your creative imagination. That's our power, the power of the imagination. I've even run across some Buddhist writers who will tell you, oh, no, imagination, that's not what you want. You don't want imagination. No, they're what they're doing is they're getting you to have a subjective vision, and then they're telling you that's not imagination. Well, at the same time, they are programming you to visualize all these different tankas and mandalas, and you're practicing visualizing all this, and then they're telling you what you receive is not imagination. Your imagination is working for you all the time in magic. Their magic and ours. And as those of you who know me are aware, I spent a lot of time sitting and doing tantric yoga with Tibetans, and so I'm quite familiar with their philosophy and their techniques, and we've used as many of those as we can in our process. Now, so where is all this leading? And this is where we get back into the mission statement aspect of this. Well, one of the things we're doing is we're epitomizing romanticism, and we are unique. We're the unique American magical system. These other magical systems, like the Golden Dawn, the O.T.A, they come from Europe and from England or whatever. The O.T.A and the Grana Repoa Reformado, this is a unique American system. And Romanticism is uniquely American too. It's the American dream. Be all you can be. That's the Army slogan. And discover your destiny. Now, I'm going to give Crowley some credit, because Crowley did bring magic into the realm of a modern system, and we do owe him thanks for that. And Crowley also said something else too. He said, "Find your true will and do it," and that is very, very true. One of the things that magic does, and we say, "Nosce te ipsum, tu es Deus." Know yourself. You are God, or in your temple you are one with the gods. Now, the idea here is, and the big secret of the Hermetic tradition, the great, big, huge secret, is the great I Am. And the great I Am amounts to the fact that the only place you're ever going to find God is inside yourself. That we are all born with a certain measure of God within us, a spark of divinity. And the whole idea of the Holy Guardian Angel thing, which is another thing we do, by the way, our third degree, that's Milano Ferris, is a Holy Guardian Angel retreat. And we don't do it Abermellon style. The Abermellon is not the most traditional Holy Guardian Angel system in Western magic. The most traditional is the one Hermes originally laid down, and Agrippa and Trithemius codified, and that is found, replicated, and laid out in the Pauline art of the Lemegeton. Now that's the real Holy Guardian Angel system, and that's what we do in our Holy Guardian Angel retreat. Now, what you're trying to do is find your connection to God with your Holy Guardian Angel. He is with you through your various incarnations, and you have other angels, other guardian angels that come with you with your birth sign and with your ascendant. But your connection to God through all the incarnations is your Holy Guardian Angel, and you will discover that connection to God. You'll work to develop that connection. And what you're going to discover, and the big secret behind the Hermetic tradition, the secret that was known by Meister Eckhart and Jacob Boehm, and has been known all the way through by Hermetic adepts, is that God is within you, and you'll find God within yourself. And once you find God within yourself, you are immortal, because you realize that consciousness never dies. God's consciousness doesn't die. You go on. And the idea, and Jesus, quite frankly, this was what he was trying to do, was to get us purified and redeemed enough to where we could find that spark of God within us and become one with it, and then that's salvation. Then you are immortal. You're because this is the secret behind. Basically, it's the secret behind Jesus' teachings, but this secret was really, you'll find it in the Hermetic treatises, and you'll find it, as I say, the writings of Meister Eckhart and the writings of Jacob Boehm. You'll find it over and over again. That I am the great I am, and that was the name of God that Moses received, the idea here is this is enlightenment, and when you finally realize that yes, you do have God within you. Yes, you are the eyes, the ears, and the senses of God, as Meister Eckhart said over and over, and Jacob Boehm said, we've been given eyes and mouth, nose, ears. We've been given the senses, and to be the eyes and ears and the senses of God Himself. We're here, according to Hermes, to witness and celebrate the acts of the Creator. That's what we're here for, and therefore, in the West especially, we like life. We enjoy life. We enjoy nature. We enjoy life. We appreciate God's gifts to us, and we want to have the experience of becoming one with God. Now, when you get this experience, and you can do this in meditation. This can come in meditation, and that's one of the great things about Hermetic yoga is that that and yoga on the spheres within, and you can really get close. You get close to God, and that's what we're trying to do. We're trying to bring people to the idea of this oneness, become one with God, and like our yoga, where you breathe in, and as you breathe in, you say to yourself, "Through me flows a river of unlimited love." You hold that, and then you breathe out loud, and you say, "I am one with God." Breathe in, say it to yourself, "Through me flows a river of unlimited love." Hold it, let it out, "I am one with God." And you do this 22 times before you go into your yoga and explore your chakras within. So we're trying to bring people to God. Also, and you say, "Well, yes, but why are you using all these old pagan gods and goddesses?" Because they are all part of us. The pagan, we still have the God. The gods are still in us. They represent our passions, our desires. They're very human, as Hermes said. Man creates the gods of the earth sphere, the gods of the zodiac are eternal. Yeah, you're God, so you're going to create the gods. You're going to recreate and remember and recreate the gods within yourself. And the angels of each one of the spheres will open the door so you can visit your gods, which are part of you. That's part of what makes you human. And this is one of the things that was lost when the Christians, tried to destroy classical paganism. And Hermes Trismegistus tried. That was the last attempt for classical paganism to survive. But the truth is that Marcus the Valentinian, he was not just a Gnostic Christian. Marcus the Valentinian was a Hermetic Christian. And in fact, Hippolytus, who did the Nicene document, he said that Marcus was more of a Pythagorean than a Christian. Well, Pythagoras is one of the bedrocks of Hermetic philosophy. So, what we're trying to do, and our mission, is to lead our members, is to lead them into a flowering of their romantic spirit, and to find their true will and purpose, and to bring them closer to God, and to help them achieve immortality. And I think that is a worthy goal, a worthy mission, and is a worthy task for us to do, and to bring our message to as many people as possible, and give them the tools, and give them the opportunity to enjoy this supreme adventure. And so next week we will have another show where we'll discuss some aspects of magical philosophy, and so we're going along on the same theme. So be sure to tune in next week, and we'll be back. And meanwhile, good magic.